Welcome everybody. I hope everybody had a chance to grab some lunch. Maybe you're eating during this, totally fine, not a problem. Again, my name is Sarah. I am a parent partner at Valley City's WISE or wraparound program. I've been a certified peer counselor for the last 5 years. 2 of those have been at Valley Cities, and before that, I was an adult outpatient mental health peer, as well as an outpatient family peer. So I've kind of been doing multiple different roles for a while. I got into mindfulness really because I did DBT at the BRTC, which is the Behavior Research Training Center at UW. Actually, Marsha Linehan got to oversee my, well, didn't get to, she did oversee my treatment plan. And mindfulness is one of the main, it's the foundation for DBT. Like they bring mindfulness is in between every single module. So I got really, really versed at mindfulness. And then when I came into the peer counseling role and into that world with mental health and working with other people, I recognized that mindfulness gets thrown around a lot. This word mindfulness, it's just thrown around. You're having anxiety, go do mindfulness. You're depressed, go do mindfulness. There's not really a how to do mindfulness, which is what we learned, what I learned in DBT was how to do mindfulness. And there are actually steps to it. So I teach people I work with the different steps of mindfulness and not just this idea of mindfulness, if you will. A lot of people that I started working with at first really, well, and even some of the parents I work with now are like, no, I've done mindfulness, it doesn't work. And gently and respectfully, okay, I understand that. Have you been taught how to do mindfulness? And then once they're taught, it's a completely different experience for them. So I did a DBT workshop this morning. And if any of you were in there, you may have heard this story. At the very end of it, I shared a story about one of my most memorable, they use the word client at the agency I worked with. So that's just what I tend to use when I speak about this person. Maybe not most recovery oriented, but anyway, this client that I worked with was a transitioning transgender person going from male to female. And they fully believed that leaving their home, they would be murdered because they were trans. So this was even after 2 years of therapy. So I worked with them for a couple of months and really explored the idea of how to do mindfulness with them and the steps and that there's a process to it. They eventually agreed to try it. And after about 6 months, we had they came in for their appointment. It was the week after Thanksgiving, so after Black Friday, and had a huge success to share. Again, remember this person wouldn't leave their home. They came to therapy and that was it. And the story that they shared with me, and I get so excited every time I talk about it, was they decided to go to Bass Pro Shop on Black Friday. A huge thing to me, I'm like, wait a minute. You're a trans woman that went into Bass Pro Shop, a store that is normally shopped most frequently by conservative Republicans, and there's guns. Way to go. Like, I would have been totally out of my element if I were in their shoes going into Bass Pro Shop. And so that was a whole conversation there. And they had a couple of anxiety attacks while they were there, but they stayed. And after that, and I won't go into details because we're going to keep this PG today, they also shared right next to Bass Pro Shop, if anybody has been to Tacoma and been to Bass Pro Shop, there's an adult themed store right next to it. So this person went to this adult themed store with their mother and had allowed their mother to buy them things. That again, using mindfulness skills, which they'd never done before. And they did it successfully. And while there was more to the story than that I'm not going to share because that's probably TMI for everybody. I just thought it was amazing that the only thing that they did, after 2 years of therapy, it wasn't the therapy skills necessarily that they were using, it was the mindfulness skills. And it just, yeah, I loved it. It was just amazing. So that's my story about why I find mindfulness so important. Another caveat before we move into this is that I do use humor a lot. So please I mean no offense to anybody if something I say comes across odd. It's my sense of humor. I mean best intent always, and I do try to use recovery language. If I mess up, please let me know, because I, again, mean no offense. Please feel free to laugh at me, roll your eyes at me. I'm good. It's fine. I'm just excited to be able to be here and share this information with you guys. So with that, let's jump into it. So hopefully everybody is here in the Mindfulness 101 workshop like they wanted to be. And I accidentally just closed the chat, but please use the chat as often as you want to. I did have the little chat box open. And then I try to stop in between sections too to ask for questions. So we are going to start today with the empowerment of mindfulness.
There's a story, usually attributed to the Native American tradition, which illuminates different ways of paying attention. An elder, talking to a child, says, "I have two wolves fighting in my heart. One wolf is fearful, vengeful, envious, resentful, and deceitful. The other wolf is compassionate, loving, generous, truthful, and peaceful." The child asks, "Which wolf will win the fight?" The elder responds, "The one I feed." That doesn't mean we try to deny or hurt or kill the angry wolf. If we did that, we'd end up in a long battle, all the while somehow making that wolf more powerful through our hostility and fear. Hating that wolf sucks the strength right out of us. Instead, we calmly pay attention to the angry wolf and let go of believing they have the answers. If we can do that, they end up lying down next to us, no longer an enemy. We help strengthen the kind and loving wolf, giving it nourishment and support so that we can follow it. That peaceful wolf can become our steady companion and show us the way through all kinds of different life experiences. Restful or chaotic, enjoyable or disappointing experiences may come and go, but we can have a guide with us through it all. This is what mindfulness can help you do. Mindfulness allows us to see our thoughts and feelings as they are beginning. It's very powerful to know what we're feeling as we're feeling it, know what we're thinking as we're thinking it. With mindfulness, we can choose what will strengthen and bring into action, and we can choose what we will gently let go of. We don't have to be at the mercy of old habits or old ways of thinking or old ways of being. We are empowered. It just takes practice.
I like to share that, just again, another example of why mindfulness can be so impactful for people and so helpful. So just to reiterate, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present and aware of where you are and what you are doing. And I just realized there's a typo on here. We're going to let that go. And to not overly react or be overwhelmed by what's going on with you. So it's a little sometimes not necessarily be overwhelmed. Sometimes I am overwhelmed, but not necessarily react to being overwhelmed. So that's kind of that important part there too. So before we go into the skills of mindfulness, before you learn anything, let's just take 2 minutes and we're going to be aware, we're going to be mindful of our breath, and talk about, after we're done with that, talk about kind of what that was like, and then we'll move into the skills. So I'm going to have 2 minutes of music here, and you don't need to do anything special. Just get comfortable where you are. If you want to slow your breathing down, you can. If you just want to continue breathing the way you are, that's fine. The idea is to just be aware of your breathing. And here we go. as you're ready, go ahead and come on back to our discussion here, back to the workshop. I'm going to see if I can get the chat up here. Nope. Okay. Let me see if I can do it now. So I just want to invite people, if you want to, if you feel comfortable, does anybody want to share any experience? And I'm not able to get the chat box up for some reason. I don't know why it's not coming back up. I'll keep trying, but does anybody want to maybe unmute and share how that was for them? You don't have to.
It was very peaceful and calming. I really appreciated it.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
I think you should be able to open the chat by hitting Alt-H is what it says. That might help.
And I keep trying that and it won't, yeah, it's not, okay. I guess we'll just have to unmute. But thank you.
Hey, I am quote unquote the volunteer from PWA, and since I can see the chat, people can do the chat, ask questions or whatever, and I can read it out loud for you if you want me to.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. So did anybody notice while we were doing that, just having the music going and paying attention to our breath, did you notice that there were times that you weren't just focused on your breath? Like maybe you heard the clock, or you were thinking about what you have to do when you go back to work, or your mind was pulled in any other direction but just staying on your breath.
Yes.
I did too.
Me.
Anybody? Yeah, I did too. Anybody else?
Swirls of things.
Right?
Absolutely.
I kept having,
yes.
Go ahead.
Of course. That's what we do. We think.
Yep, absolutely. And I kept having urges to check my phone or make sure that something was muted, or I've got a time frame for this presentation. We need to keep going, right? What you guys all just did was a mindfulness practice. Even with those distractions, this is the difference between meditation and mindfulness. Mindfulness is being aware. Your brain can get distracted. You can think about that clock. You can think about the swirls, but you come back. You gently bring yourself back to what you were doing. Whereas meditation, it's I need to focus on this. This is what I'm focusing on, and staying focused on that one. I can't. I'm a dismal failure at meditation. Mindfulness I can do. Meditation, nope. That's just me. I believe, I don't know if there's any scientific evidence to this or not, but I believe from the people that I've worked with, and myself included, people who have things like ADHD that they live with, or anxiety, or trauma, I believe that our brains maybe don't feel safe, and that's why it's harder to do things like mindfulness. I mean, meditation, why it's harder to do meditation, but it feels safer to do mindfulness. And the terms do get mixed up a lot. People will say, oh, just go do a meditation, when they meant go do mindfulness. Or they'll say do mindfulness when they mean meditation. So I've found that asking, okay, do you mean this or do you mean this? I've had that happen even with my own family. My aunt she does meditation, and she's crazy, like 2.5 hour meditation. She'll do weekend meditation retreats. And I'm like, okay, I just did a mindfulness for 2 minutes and I had a hard time with that. I'm good. Go ahead.
Many people, or a couple of people, have stated and agreed that it can be hard or challenging to even do a couple minutes of mindfulness.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying that, because I really want to share that when I first started doing this, I maybe could do mindfulness for 30 seconds. Seriously. And as I just shared, 2 minutes sometimes is a struggle, depending on what's going on. And that's okay. That's one of the things I love about mindfulness, is that we don't, as you're going to learn, one of the skills is to not judge your judging. It is what it is. You're okay. There's not a right or a wrong. So if you can only do it for 30 seconds and you did it for 30 seconds, fantastic. You did it for 30 seconds and maybe it's time to move on. That's okay. It's a skill. It takes time to build. There are people who have been doing mindfulness for 80 years. No kidding. There are monks that this is their way of life, and they don't even consider themselves mindfulness masters. They're still apprentices after 80 years. So if you can only do 2 minutes, fantastic. If you can do 10, my hat's off to you. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but there are a lot of people that can. So what are we learning for mindfulness? What are the skills of mindfulness? We start off, there are two different categories. We've got our what skills, which we're about to go into right now. And then there's also the how skills. So first we're going to learn what we're doing with mindfulness, and then we're going to learn how to do it. There's a little bit of how in the what, but that gets confusing. So the what skills, the first one is to observe. How we started out that practice of just observing our breath, noticing body sensations, your 5 different senses. Also paying attention to what is internal and what is external, what's going on in the room, what's going on in your home, what's going on in your yard. I'm assuming most of us are at home. I mean, same could be said for also practice wordless watching. So just letting things come to you without having to put a label on it. That's really hard. We're taught really early, like as we're learning to even speak, to label things. So wordless watching is really, really hard. And again, there's no judgment. If you attach a word to it as you're watching something, it's okay. You're still at least trying. You're working on this skill. And then remember, observe is absolutely inside and outside your body. So as you're comfortable, and I say this because some people like myself have neuromuscular diseases, or they have pain issues, those sort of things. Sometimes observing what's going on inside can be hard. It can be scary. So you may need to start with what's outside, but then maybe move a little bit closer and maybe observe like the blanket on your lap. I have a blanket on my lap, so that's why I said it. Or the shirt, like where your shirt hits your shoulders. What does that feel like? Or your glasses. One of the mindfulness exercises that I do is for people who have piercings of any kind. Observing, can you feel the outside of the piercing? Can you feel the post that goes through your skin? And can you feel the backside? That can be interesting. So it really can be big, it can be little, it can be however you want to practice it that's comfortable for you in the moment, or for the people that you work with. So here is another awesome little video that I like for observing thoughts.
Do you ever wonder about your thoughts? They're fascinating, really. Some scientists estimate we have up to 70,000 thoughts a day. Thoughts are always coming and going, and they affect how we feel. Imagine for a moment that each thought is a train, and your brain is a busy train station. Some thoughts just speed by, and others linger for a while. A thought might even park itself for a long stay at the station. And when that thought is unpleasant, it can make us feel things like sadness, anger, frustration, hurt, or just uncomfortable. So what do we do when we feel this way? Well, naturally, we try to avoid the thought. Sometimes we even try to change it or quash it. But research shows none of this works to get rid of the thought. In fact, if you want a thought to go away, one of the best things you could do is practice mindfulness. Let the train of thoughts come through the station. When one parks itself in the station, don't run from it. Don't judge it. And don't try to change it. Just notice it. Just observe it from the outside. If you feel uncomfortable, know this. The feelings are temporary. They will pass. And if you can mindfully observe your thoughts, they too shall pass.
So do we observe our thoughts? Well, by using describe. If you're having thoughts like they were talking about in the video, and you're trying to observe your thoughts from outside of yourself, I mean, that sounds almost like maybe you're disassociating. I don't know. I didn't really think about that before I put the video in there. But if you're like from the outside looking at your thoughts and I'm worried, you can start to describe what you're feeling, what that experience is. This is where we're now labeling a little bit. So you're labeling what you're observing. And you unglue your interpretations and your own thoughts from fact. So you describe the who, the what, the when, the where. And remember that if you can't observe something through your senses, then you can't describe it. So that right there, if you can't observe it through your senses, you can't describe it, is really helpful in ungluing interpretations and opinions from fact. Because if you can observe it through your senses, you can see it, you can taste it, feel it, those sort of things, then you can describe what it is. And oftentimes, can we describe a fact? A fact is a fact. A equals B is a fact. So you don't really it's not really describable. Observations, interpretations, opinions, those are describable. So that can start to help piece out fact from opinion. And I don't know about a lot of you guys, I can speak for myself when my anxiety brain is going really strong, and that's when I need to practice mindfulness. Being able to discern what is a fact. The fact is we're in this presentation right now. My interpretation is, I've got some rumbling in my stomach, some tightening. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm presenting in front of people. I want to do a good job. That's interpretation. That's opinion of what's going on in my own body. The fact is I'm here right now. Hopefully that helps make sense. So another nice little video, this is about observe and describe. And I put this in here because I really felt, this is me completely. I still have this problem. I mean, even pre-COVID, I had the same struggle that this person had. And I've actually used this in a grocery store myself. And this is using observe and describe together and what it looks like. I thought this was really helpful.
My name is Joe Van Wyk, and I live in Austin, Texas. I'm doing a series exploring mindfulness, not because I'm an expert, but because I'm a learner. Please click subscribe to watch more. All right, true confessions. I am heading to a place that used to cause me so much anxiety. I still struggle with it from time to time, but it's nothing like it used to be. And I've learned this mindfulness technique that really helps. So you tell me, am I at the hospital? The county jail? No, much worse. I know you guessed it. It's the grocery store. What is up these places? Don't you feel like the grocery store is a giant maze? They can be cavernous, crowded, claustrophobic, and downright confusing. Better cover every aisle or you might forget something clear across the store. How many kinds of apples are there anyway? And what about those checkout lines? It's enough to make anyone lose it. So one day in the grocery store, I was in the middle of the aisle and I was totally overwhelmed. I guess I was having a minor panic attack. And in fact, I was getting ready to ditch my cart altogether, and I just stopped. And I remembered some mindfulness training that I had had, and this idea of observing and describing. And right about that moment, I turned And out of this whole ocean of products, I saw this one single product, and I'll show you what it was. It was a jar of jelly of all things. So the thing is, I let my concentration fall on that jelly jar. I looked at it and I just noticed all kinds of details about it. And the more detail that I got, like who would I thought there was some kind of a stagecoach back here? And look at these leaves, all of the details in all of these leaves here, and the gradation in the purple on those grapes. The more that I looked at the detail, the more I observed, the deeper I got into it, one thing at a time, like letting my eyes follow the outline of that little bitty vine, like I was cocooned. It was like I was walled off from all the chaos and the sensory overload going on at the store at that time. So it didn't take me long focusing on that jelly jar for my focus to return and for me to kind of get back into a state of calm. And it's thanks to mindfulness and that amazing power of description and observation that got me to I finished that day and I didn't ditch my card on somebody. Another successful trip to the grocery store. You know, mindfulness is so cool because it's so practical and you get to see the results right away. Who would have known that all it took to get me over my grocery store freak out was a simple jar of jelly.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry, it went into the next one. That's not what we want. Thank you. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of an idea about how to use observe and describe together.
My name is Joe.
That's not what I wanted. I want you to go to the next slide. I may have to unshare and then go back. Oh, there we go. Never mind, I got it. So the next skill, the final skill for the what is to participate. So participate means that you are fully throwing yourself into the moment that you are in right now. You are becoming one with what you're doing, that you're acting intuitively from wise mind. And what wise mind is, that's a DBT term. Wise mind is taking the emotion brain and your logic brain and coming to that middle ground or that wise mind of doing what you need to do for the situation, honoring both, but coming to the logical, not necessarily logical, that's wrong, coming to a middle path of what's going to be most effective for you in this moment. And then also going with the flow. So one of the examples that I tend to give, well, one of the common examples is a dancer. So when they are dancing, they have to be completely in the moment of what they're doing, or they could make a mistake. They could make a misstep. They could lose track of the music, right? So they're a really good example of being fully in the moment and participating in the moment. Another example could be if after this COVID pandemic is over, you get a phone call from your buddies and like, hey, we haven't been out to a movie since before the pandemic, let's go. But you have some concern about whatever it might be. You have anxiety. I have anxiety. So I go back to that a lot. And you're like, okay. Participate would be being fully present in that movie theater, in the seat, watching the movie with your friends. It wouldn't be worrying about, oh my goodness, is somebody going to sneeze on me? It wouldn't be thinking about, oh, when I get home, I need to make a grocery list. I need to do that. No, it's being right there present in that moment. And if you're not, gently bringing yourself back to it. Always gently bringing back if you find that you're wandering, and that's totally fine. And then also, one of the things that they talk about a lot with mindfulness is responding with spontaneity. That's my least favorite part of participate, because My anxiety brain tells me that spontaneity is dangerous, which we know it's probably not. So that one is the hard part for me, is to be spontaneous. I'll participate a lot in things that are fun. I'm participating right now. I was asked to come and do this workshop. Here I am, I'm participating with it. If somebody were to have asked me yesterday, hey, you want to do this workshop? I might not have said yes because it's too quick. It's, you know, that's spontaneity, but spontaneity is not necessarily dangerous. So we're going to do one more group activity, and after the group activity, I'm going to open it up for questions for everything we just covered, so that if you guys have any questions, we don't lose track of those. So this group activity, I'm going to ask that we just take, I'm going to grab my phone for a timer. Just take, let's say, a minute and to observe what we're seeing. This is a Salvador Dali painting. It's a little pixelated, so I do apologize for that. It was the best I could do. And just observe it. And then we're going to come together after the timer goes off. And those who are willing, that want to participate, because we're going to pull all three together, describe what you observed. So I am going to go ahead and start the timer now. All right, so that is a minute. And does anybody want to share? See, okay, I still am not having any luck with the chat box, but we do have our volunteer here. Yep,
That would be me.
Yep, Brooke can help with anything that you guys write in the comment box. So if you would feel more comfortable in the chat box, that's fine. Also, if you want to unmute yourself and share, that's fine as well. Does anybody want to jump in to participate and share with some observe and describe, or some describe skills, or some things that they describe that you noticed from the painting?
Bernice states that they all have clocks.
They do. Yes, that is very true. Anybody else? So I'll share something that I didn't notice until I've looked at this. I've seen this hanging up on walls before, and I've had, you know, I obviously created the slideshow. I didn't recognize that there seems to be a platform with the clock that looks like it's on the ground. It looks like there's a bit of a platform, and that sheet always looked like a moon to me until I really looked at it today. And now it looks like it's covering a body or a goose head.
The clock on the bottom left in the corner seems, since it's a little blurry here, looks like a pizza.
It does.
And I like pizza.
Pizza's good.
And Tanya Lee stated that time is fluid except for the thing that looks like a stopwatch on the bottom left, but this painting was made long before stopwatches.
Good. Anybody else?
Could be a pocket watch.
Could be. Yeah. Yeah, Salvador Dali did keep a pocket watch on him, so that could be.
Jules says, I see a time warp. Jessica says, it appears as though the background has contradictions with the mountains than the metallic seeming flat surface. And Stacy said, they were thinking it was a compass.
Nice. Well, thank you everybody for sharing. And this is just another example of bringing those three skills together. You guys were observing, you described, even if you didn't share in your mind, I'm sure you probably were describing some things to yourself. And then there were those of you that chose that wanted to participate by sharing, which is fantastic. So you've used all three of those skills. And so it can be sharing these skills with people we work with we can make it what it needs to be for them. And that's part of why I wanted to do this workshop, is how to share not only what mindfulness is, but how to share it with the people that we work with, because there's this big thought that mindfulness is just this huge thing and it's not customizable, when it really is. We really can make it to whatever that person needs at that time, whatever is relevant in their life. So moving on, we've got the how skills. So John, I can never say his name right. John Kabat-Zinn has a mindfulness center. He is considered the American founder of mindfulness. And so non-judgmentally is a really big concept within the how skills. And I felt like he does a much better job of explaining it than I ever could. So that's why I put this video in here, and hopefully it's helpful.
Non-judging is a very important element of mindfulness practice, and in fact is part of my working definition of mindfulness, which is the awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmental. And the non-judgmentally is the real challenge, because when you start to pay attention to what's on your mind, you very rapidly discover that we have ideas and opinions about everything, just about everything. And we're always judging things in terms of, I like that, I don't like that, I want that, I don't want that, this is good, that's bad. It's like a steady stream of judging. So when we speak of mindfulness as being non-judgmental awareness, it doesn't mean that there won't be judgments. It means that you will be aware of how judgmental we actually are, and then not judge the judging. And when we relate to it in that kind of a way, then we begin to see that our judging is very often black and white. It's either this or that, good or bad, like, dislike, want, don't want. And we get imprisoned by that kind of view. But being non-judgmental doesn't mean that all of a sudden you get stupid and think, well, I'm not going to be judgmental, so I'll just walk out in the street in front of an oncoming truck. What difference does it make? No, it means that we will cultivate discernment. This is the capacity to see what's actually unfolding, but not to judge it, but to recognize it and to understand it in relationship to our experience. So when we speak about non-judgmental awareness, we're talking about a very fine degree of discernment, of clarity, of wisdom, of understanding the interconnections between things. At the same time, noticing the tendency to judge quite quickly, like, don't like, want, don't want, and to recognize that that actually creates a kind of veil or a filter in front of our eyes that doesn't allow us to see things as they are, but to only see them through the lenses of our own ideas and opinions and likes and dislikes, which is practically blinding to us. So this is a wonderful discipline, the cultivation of awareness of judging and the cultivation of being gently non-judgmental or not judging the judging that we do discover in ourselves. And over days, weeks, months, and years, we can begin to actually find a way to navigate through our judging in such a way that it no longer dominates our lives in quite the same way. And we recognize when it comes up that it's actually, in some sense, toxic. And the more we challenge it, and the more we rest in discernment and in pure awareness, the more we can live life authentically in the present moment without getting caught by our own habits of mind, unhealthy, if you will, habits of mind.
Awesome. So hopefully that kind of gives you guys a bit more of an understanding about non-judgmentally. One of the other things that I learned while I was learning about non-judgmentally is one of the biggest judgment words is should. You can think about how many times in a day somebody has told you, you should do something. You should like this, you should do this, you should go there, you should do that. Should is a judgment. That's them telling you what they think you should do, right? So that's a judgment. And how often do you do that unintentionally to other people as well? So when I was learning about this, there's a saying, stop shoulding yourself. So it's not so much about stopping shoulding other people. It's more about yourself right now when we're talking about mindfulness. And, oh, I should go do the laundry. I should go back to school. I should whatever it is. You're shoulding on yourself. And it's kind of fun when you're teaching this to teenagers or young adults, because if you say it fast enough, it sounds like you're saying something completely different. And then they, of course, start laughing hysterically, which I did with my son. So that was kind of a fun thing. But at the same time, the same principle applies. When we stop shoulding ourselves, or at least become aware, you may not completely, I still should myself. I still should on myself frequently. But when you can become aware of it, you're like, oh, okay, I just shoulded. What is that about? Why am I doing that? And is that something I want to do? Or am I judging it? That can be helpful as well. The next one after non-judgmentally is one mindfully. So very similar to how we talked about with participate, riveting yourself to the current moment, to where you are right this moment, being completely present here and now. So instead of me going and checking my phone, my work phone that's right next to me while I'm in this workshop, even while a video is playing, I'm not doing that. I'm staying present with this workshop. I'm staying present with you guys, all of you guys, to teach this workshop. Same concept, whatever it is you're doing. A lot of you are probably in your home right now and riveting yourself to right here, right now in this workshop is also a practice of being mindful right now. And then doing one thing at a time. So another example, again, doing this workshop, I'm not on my work phone. I am just doing this presentation. I'm not working on my grocery list. I'm not working on what I need to do after this workshop and going through that list of what needs to happen. I'm right here, present right now. And if I do start to wander off, non-judgmentally bringing myself back to this moment and back into this workshop. And I see that there's a question. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself. It's okay.
Hey, Sarah. A lot of us have been trained in multitasking.
Yes.
If you're a parent, for sure, that has become the only way you survive raising children. If you're in business or work with other people, I mean, we are so conditioned to that, which is why I wanted to attend this workshop, because it is really impossible to do one thing at a time, to just be in the present, to not think of distractions. I mean, is there like one pathway that you see that you've had success with people navigating?
So not one specific pathway, no, because it's a skill. Mindfulness is absolutely a skill, so it takes practice working on all of these skills together. I do also want to absolutely acknowledge what you just said, because you are 100% right. Parents in particular, working, and those of us working, any of us that are working in community mental health, we are taught from day one, orientation, you will be multitasking, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to get your job done. That's a very Western world view. It is a very Western world. And right, wrong, indifferent, it is what it is. Not judging that it is what it is. And I hope it didn't come across that way. What science is actually teaching us and showing us is that we are less effective every single time we add on an additional task to what we were originally doing. You become, and I don't remember the exact number, so I do apologize, but with that first task, you become like 25% less effective. And then each additional task, you're like 50 and then 75 and so on. You become exponentially more ineffective. So multitasking is kind of this big fallacy that the Western world has taught us that is not helpful. So when we can learn how to do just one thing and help those around us, okay, I'm doing just one thing where we can. I recognize that, again, community mental health, when I'm working with people, there's no way I can be completely 100% of the time doing just one thing. Other people around me don't recognize how to do it either, and I need to allow space for that. But I have found, especially with my mind, I have a titch of ADHD, so my son has a very large, fun plethora of effects of ADHD for him, and I've noticed the same thing with him. For his mind, if he's doing the dishes and we say, okay, so the dishes need to be done, the garbage needs to be done, and you need to clean your room, he'll start the dishes, he'll start the garbage, and he'll start his room all within 10 minutes, and nothing gets done. And it's like, wait a minute, dishes. And focusing on the dishes. What do you need to do the dishes? Perfect. Now 10 minutes later, it's done. The garbage needs, so it's coming back repeatedly and gently coming back to doing just that first task. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to get to that. And that can be done easier in the home. For sure, we are in a Western society. It can be done easier in the home than it can be in work. So I know that wasn't really a fantastic answer. I apologize, there isn't a fantastic answer, but hopefully that helps a little bit. And the next part, to kind of go along with it, doing one thing at a time, is letting go of distractions. So similar to when I was just giving that example of the dishes, the garbage, bedroom, one of the things that I've learned for myself and for my son is that if there are multiple things that I need to do, it's a distraction to me to know that I have multiple things to do and not have it written down, because I'll forget. So I write things down so that I can let go of that. And when I'm at work, there's a lot of different things that can come up. So the distractions we're talking about here for our setting as peer workers, it's going to be a little bit more difficult in our work environment. But what we can help the people we work with when we're talking about letting go of distractions be what's outside. Like, do you need a quiet space to do something? Because that can be a distraction. Or are the distractions for them that there's multiple things that need to be done and they don't know how to organize that, and therefore in their mind it becomes a distraction. Like, what does this distraction mean for them, so that you can then kind of get to that, how do we reduce that distraction for you? If that, hopefully that helps. And if you are distracted, again, the thing I love about mindfulness, if you are distracted, gently bring yourself back. I am constantly distracted when I'm doing mindfulness of whatever it is. I'll set out to do mindfulness of my breath like we did at the very beginning. And I'm constantly distracted. Like I was saying at the very beginning, the clock is ticking. I hear my son in his room. My dogs are playing. I've got my work phone. Those are all distractions. And then bringing myself, okay, I'm working on my breath right now. I'm going to come back to working just on my breath. And that's still being successful. And reiterating to people that are very new to this, that bringing yourself back is being mindful. That is a success in and of itself, because it's hard to bring yourself back, or it can be. And concentrating your mind is a kind of the same thing. Letting go of distractions and concentrating your mind is the same thing. If you're noticing that your mind is wandering, same thing. Bring it back to what you were doing and not judging yourself for it. And then the last skill for our house skills is effectively. So being mindful of the goal of your situation. So if we're working on getting the dishes done and we've got this list of things to do, what is necessary for me to get the dishes done? Not all three things, but the dishes. I need to have soap, I need to have water, I need to have something to wash the dishes with. Those are the things that I need to be successful with this goal. And that can pertain to anything, any other goal that we're working on, figuring out what it is you need to be able to be successful, and then using those things. And then focusing on what works. Sometimes when people are first starting out with mindfulness, we're more conditioned to look at what doesn't work. And so that becomes that well-worn path in our brain. Well, this didn't work. This didn't work. Okay, so we know that that didn't work. What does work? If being able to focus on one specific thing doesn't work, well, what about instead of doing meditation, doing mindfulness? That could work. I mean, it can be something that broad. It can be something super specific too. If doing the dishes isn't working for you because your hands are getting wrinkly, then you put gloves on. So when you do the dishes, you put gloves on. It can be that simple as well. And then play by the rules. So this can be confusing for some people when we're talking about playing by the rules, because not every situation we think has rules. But if we're in a situation where we are trying to practice mindfulness and we've got a situation where our boss is telling us that we're not doing something right, so we're trying to be mindful about it so that we do it right. Well, what are the rules? What is it that they're setting forth that you have to do it right? And then using those and not deviating from what those rules are. And if they're not rules that you can play by, having a conversation with them about, well, this is what's happening and why. Yeah, just having that open communication. And then also acting as skillfully as you can. Each person does, every day is different for everybody. So our best yesterday may not look like our best today. I gave this example in my first workshop. I haven't had coffee today. I didn't have time to go get coffee, so I have no coffee. So would this workshop have looked a little bit different yesterday or tomorrow? Maybe, but that's okay. I'm being skillful. I'm using my skills and I'm sharing this with you guys today where I'm at right now. And that's what matters, is that you are as skillful as you can in the moment. And then the last one is letting go of willfulness and sitting on your hands. So I have this image of willfulness and I have this image because I like to use humor. So for me, willfulness is a donkey that's being pulled. It's sitting on the ground and it's being pulled towards this watering trough because it's thirsty, it's hot outside, it's been working all day, and this donkey needs the water. And the person knows it needs the water, so it's pulling and pulling and pulling, and this donkey has its legs straight out, it's not budging. That's me when I'm willful. So when I'm getting a lot of pushback, when I feel like I'm being willful, that's the image I have in my head. So I can kind of laugh about it. I'm like, okay, I'm being that donkey again. What do I need to do to stop being willful, to be accepting of what's going on, or to be able to move forward in this situation? So sometimes having images helps, sometimes just explaining to people or yourself even what willfulness is. Willfulness is not doing what's effective towards your goal. It's pushing against it. Can be really helpful. So before we do our last group activity, one, I recognize that I didn't ask if there were questions from the first set of skills, but we're also at the end of our second set of skills. So I want to open it back up to you guys, and one, apologize for not doing what I said I would, but open it back up and ask if anybody has any questions, would like some clarification, anything like that. Okay. Oh, I have my chat box back. Anybody? Sounds like everything's making sense so far, or I've utterly confused you. And that was a joke. I'm really hoping I haven't utterly confused anybody. And if I have, please speak up. Okay, so I will go ahead. We are here until 2:15, so we do have time, which is perfect. So our last group activity, I've changed it a little bit. We did this when I first started learning about mindfulness, and I've changed it a little bit. I'm going to incorporate a few more skills with this activity. So can everybody see the pictures that are up? I'm pretty sure we can. Perfect. So these are 2 different glasses of milk. Hopefully y'all figured that out because it does say milk on there. So there we go, we're good there. So just take a quick minute, take a look at the different glasses of milk, notice their differences, and maybe also at the same time, any thoughts you have about that milk. Even any judgments that you might have, those are fine. We've talked about being non-judgmental, and it might be helpful for some if you share, hey, I did have this judgment, but I let it go. I didn't hold on to it. We can practice what it looks like to be non-judgmental and letting things go.
Do you want us to participate?
Yes.
It looks like I'm not the only one that feels like this, but there's a couple people that would take the one on the left because the one on the right, and this is my own personal judgment, the one on the right looks like it's bad. And I know bad is considered a judgment, although I do like although I prefer the glass on the right than on the left, but it just looks spoiled on the right.
You did exactly what I was hoping somebody would do. They said it's bad, but you also caught the judgment. That's awesome. And I have to also agree with you. I prefer the glass itself on the, yeah, me too. So that was awesome. All of the skills were being utilized there. That is fantastic. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share that they were thinking or anything? So the idea behind this, when I was first introduced to this activity, was without visuals. So the activity was, you're in a home, and let's say you have a couple of roommates. Let's go back to like college days for those of us that did college. Actually, I'm still in college, but whatever. I decided to go back, so there we are with that. But you've got a bunch of roommates, and you're not even awake. It's early in the morning. And you reach into the fridge to grab the milk, and your roommate just, don't stop, that's bad. Well, it's early in the morning. What do they mean? What are they talking about? That's the idea behind using the describe. And that's the idea behind, that's the idea behind wow. I was really hoping the lack of coffee wasn't going to affect me today. Apparently I was a little inaccurate. That's okay. So the idea with this activity that we're doing today is I wanted to combine all of the skills, which we've done and had a great example of, where somebody say, no, that it looks bad. Okay, but why is it bad? That's the next part of the activity, was then to describe what it's, that sort of thing. And that's the whole point with mindfulness, is it's not just giving a quick, oh, that's bad, that's good, or that sort of thing. It's using all of these skills together. And when we use all of these skills together, as mindfulness is intended to be done, it's not the go breathe and you'll be fine. There's an actual skill behind it. And I think in the comments, I even saw that somebody is doing some mindfulness stuff off of the Chopra Center. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of different mindfulness things out there. In fact, does anybody else have anything to say about this activity before I move to the next screen? I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance. Okay, we can come back to it if we need to. But what I wanted to do is go to the next screen because, well, the next two screens, because the next part is resources. There's lots of different resources. These are all different apps that you can go on to find different things on meditation. This was every single one of these resources I did get off of just one source, mindfulnessforteens.com. It's at the very bottom of the screen there. And I just used the one source because there were so many amazing, I've used actually many of these myself. There was just so many amazing sites or sources. And I'm like, I could have 10 slides with mindfulness resources. I'd rather have one with really good resources to really help people that can help the most amount of people. So these are really good apps, not just for adults, but also for teens. They are interactive and they can be helpful. Like I've shared my son, I have a teenage son, and I've done mindfulness with him a lot. Even a kiddo who has high function autism, lives with high function autism and some other neurodiverse issues, he's still able to do it. And through using mindfulness, we've been able to get him through some really tough situations and help him make his own decisions where I was out of it. It was his choice and he needed to have that modeled for him so he knew how to do it. If any of you are looking for additional resources or want to know more about mindfulness, under Plum Village Zen Meditation, it does mention, I always say his name wrong, so I apologize, Thich Nhat Hanh. Thank you. Awesome, thank you. He is amazing. He is, I think, the foremost authority on mindfulness. He is ending his, he is coming towards the end of his lifespan, on earth, but he has done a lot of really amazing videos, even on how to transition to the end of your life. He's done a couple of new ones with that, and he is just amazing. Oprah, Deepak Chopra, many other people have done interviews with him and have connected with him on how to do different mindfulness things because he is just amazing. Headspace, I've heard, so I would double check. You could probably email them directly. Mental health professionals were at least getting a free subscription through COVID. I don't know if they still are. And I can try to get that. It's a link to go to. I can try to get that if anybody else is interested. I think one of my coworkers had it. So that should be something I could do as well.
The Calm app, you can do it on your phone. They have a free version, but they also have a version to where you can subscribe, which gives you more mindfulness practice. I do the subscription, and they have so many different mindfulness practices you can do. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've done Calm as well. They have some guided, or at least had some guided meditations on it when I was doing it, that I would actually use when I was working with people. Part of our session would be to do a guided 5-10 minute guided meditation or body scan. And then we would walk through how that was for them and walk through those mindfulness skills that they were using as well. So it can be really helpful. The insight timer can as well. I think the insight timer might be for people that are a little bit more practiced, that might be able to do like a 2-minute mindfulness. I think that's the lowest you can set the timer for. But they call it meditations. I think of them as mindfulness, whichever word you prefer to use. They do also have, like it says on there, some guided meditations as well. And then the last slide is just a thank you to all of you for being willing to be here today. I really appreciate it. This is my very first, I do a lot of presentations for DBT skills. This is my very first one that was specifically on mindfulness. So I really appreciate you guys being here and joining me for my pilot of this one. If any of you guys are interested in DBT workshops, just as a little plug for myself, I do have my own business. I do go to agencies and do all staff trainings on DBT skills, where peers fit in, that sort of thing. I have a 1-day and a 2-day that I provide. So if you are interested in that, you can email me. I do give a discount for agencies that have peers that found out about it through Peer Pathways. So for the 1-day, it's a 10% discount, and for the 2-day, it's a 20% discount.
Before you end this, I want to remind people to go to the chat and go to the link that I've provided several times. Sorry about that. To do a survey and it helps Peer Pathways to plan for next year's conference.
Yeah, thank you. I did see that that was on there a couple of times, but that's okay. And so that's the end of the download of information. Does anybody have any questions, comments, stories? We've got another 5 minutes that we can be together before our next break. I think it's a break before our next set of workshops. I was either that good or that bad. I'm not sure.
You were just delightful. Thank you very much. I've been teaching yoga for a number of years now and facilitating mindfulness and meditation. And sometimes 2 minutes is just impossible for me. Other times I can go a really long time, but some days, for some reason, today is one of those days. I can't stop looking out my window, checking my work phone, and yeah, so it comes and goes. And hopefully, no pun intended, of course. Comes and goes. Thank you very much for this.
Yeah, thank you. So I will see if I can. Okay, I think I'm stop share. There we go. And I have it back. Awesome. Now I can see the chat box. It looks like there was a couple other resources shared in the chat box too. Hopefully y'all were able to see that. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I mean, we do have 5 more minutes. I certainly don't want to make anybody leave. And I want to give people time if they're still percolating on some questions. Yes, I used percolating.
I just want to say I appreciate the reminder of both the how skills and the what skills. Because I've been doing DBT off and on since 2003 and find the reminders and the relearning very useful.
Well, excellent. I'm glad that was helpful. I try not to be too preachy about DBT. I know it's not for everybody, but it definitely saved it. I don't want to say saved me because I'm the one that did the work. It was exactly what I needed in my recovery. My current, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna tell you someone was asking you a question.
Yeah, no, not a problem, not a problem. So my current position is a parent partner. I am at Valley Cities for their WISE program, which depending on who you ask, is wraparound, but we moved to WISE in March when the MCOs took over. So I've also been an outpatient mental health provider, not mental health provider. Wow, jumping ahead a couple of years. I'm working on my psychology degree. So in a couple of years, I will be a mental health provider, but as an outpatient mental health peer. And I've also done outpatient family peer work. You're a youth peer, yay! We need more youth peers. We are actually losing one of our youth peers at Valley Cities because he's going to grad school. Next week is his last week, and we're very sad.
Okay, I have a question. So to be a youth peer, do you have to be within a certain age range, or do you have to have lived experience getting mental health services as a youth and or young adult?
I'm the
So-
youngest of my coworkers. I'm 19,
Yeah.
and I'm the youngest that they've ever hired at this specific location. And then our oldest is 35 right now, and they're not just gonna tell her to go away. So, you know what I mean? Because she does have that lived experience and she's still able to relate to these youth.
That's cool. I mean, the reason why I ask is because I'm in my early 40s and I want to work with youth who've been through the same. I have lived experience as a youth and young adult in the mental health system. And one of the things that I didn't like being told by people who are currently who were my current age was, at least you're getting help now. And I mean, that's probably the worst thing you can tell a teen or a young adult, or at least that's from my experience.
I would agree. I couldn't even imagine being told that. And my understanding is that the agencies get to decide, but I've been told, and I could be very wrong, that 30 is typically where they make a cutoff for hiring a youth peer, because at that point it's harder for the youth to relate to them. But I would definitely, Beverly Miller would be a fantastic contact, or even Stephanie or Lauren, Stephanie Lane or Lauren. They would probably be able to tell you as well. But yes, you do, to qualify as a youth peer, you have to have experienced mental health struggles as a youth. Okay, guys, it is 2:15, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and thank you all again so much, so that everybody can have their break and get to the next set of workshops. If you have any questions, comments, want to contact me later, please feel free, not a problem.